The biggest March ever continues. The SEC has set a new NCAA tournament record with 7 teams going to the Sweet 16. We're breaking down all the second round action in the rebound.
Plus, the Sweet 16 has more storylines that just write themselves. Ole Miss has a chance to set a new school all-time best. Tennessee and Kentucky meet for the third time this year, and Arkansas reunites with former Southwest Conference foe, the Texas Tech Red Raiders.
And there's a lot more storylines than that. That's today and more on the Hoop Southbound Show. How was your weekend of basketball? Just jam-packed Thursday through Sunday night, 96 straight hours of hoops.
It was a lot of hoops. It's a good thing that I love basketball, or I would probably be tired of watching it at this point.
But
Apollo
who's sick of it? Like, who could possibly not love this sport?
Apollo got a little tired of it. We had to go on a couple walks today and some of the lull of games. But he is slowly getting used to it, I
Yeah,
think.
fair enough, fair enough. I will say this about this tournament overall, as much fun as I am having watching it, it's probably been like one of the least eventful tournaments outside of what's happening in the SEC right now. Like, there's been very little buzzer beaters. Maryland got one against Colorado State. Not a lot of Cinderella stories overall. This has been a dominant performance by the Big Ten and the SEC and the big conferences overall in the traditional powerhouses of the sport.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of talk about, people looking towards NIL or looking at, transfer rules as that possibly being the case. But essentially, like we talked about, there are just some powerhouse teams in these bigger conferences, and it's hard to get an edge on them.
Well, I will also present an alternative theory to that because like this is something I didn't know we were going to be talking too much on, but like I agree with you also like yeah, NIL and the transfer portal's having an impact, but I'll present an alternative theory here as well. This is the last year of COVID year players. So you got guys who are playing their fifth, sixth year of college basketball, going on and on. Like the COVID year players, except for the ones who transfer from JUCO, are all going to be gone next year. But you're talking about you got guys who are 26 out there hooping right now in the NCAA tournament. It doesn't create guys who have been there. It doesn't create as much margin for error for some of these smaller schools with maybe younger rosters trying to squeak through. And that's what's kind of created this. So I think it's a perfect storm of a lot of different things happening, but I think it's going to make for an insane last 2 rounds of the tournament. And just really this year, I think the cream rose to the top instead of less chaos. Yeah, there were some hot teams that came through and won a game, like Colorado State. McNeese was really good this year. We knew that was one of our better mid majors, but I really do think the COVID players and the experience of so many of these players had an impact. And next year we'll probably see just something completely different. Would be my guess. Like I said, I don't dismiss the transfer portal NIL theory, but I do think there's even more to it than that. Just this.
Yeah, I I think it's probably a culmination of a lot of different things, but I'm just excited we get to watch a lot of good basketball.
We do get to watch a lot of good basketball, and we watched a lot of really good performances here in the round of 32. We're going to talk about these games real fast, and let's start out with the first one that happened in the round of 32 here in the SEC. And yeah, as John Calipari said, they put Arkansas in the coffin, but they forgot the nails as the Arkansas Razorbacks take down the St. John's Red Storm in this one by a 75-66. Maddie, I could talk about a lot of different things and a lot of different angles on this one, but let's just start out with the big one. A lot of people were excited about the Pitino Calipari matchup. There were also people talking about, like, on Field of 68, that they thought Rick Pitino was just a miles better coach than John Calipari was and everything else. And here's John Calipari now getting wins over Bill Self and Rick Pitino in back-to-back games as the underdog in both those games. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, fantastic coaching efforts. There were quite a few times in this game where I was just about to kick myself for being a Razorbacks fan. And then there were several times that I kicked this game that I picked against Arkansas in the bracket. Um, because, you know, Cal's talked about a lot post game. Just the fact that these guys have overcome a lot this year and it's made them stronger as a team unit. And I think we really saw that stand out in this game.
Well, one of the things I talked to you about, like off camera, is that Arkansas's draw was good overall for their who they kind of are. You had an underperforming Kansas team and a St. John's team that I thought they actually matched up pretty well with, given all circumstances. Because one of the things that Arkansas doesn't do well is shoot the three, but St. John's doesn't either. And Arkansas wants to play in a physical basketball game and use their athleticism. It was a matchup that was not unexpected. That was not unexpected to me at all. I felt like this entire time Arkansas would either go 0-1 or they would go 2-0 through this series. And like I felt like that was where this was trending at, is like what team would show up on any given night. Can they make games the kind of games they want to play? And they did. They made it a very physical basketball game in this one. No one was hitting from three. They were locked down defensively around the perimeter. So, like St. John's, who is one of the worst three-point shooting teams in the country, comes out and shoots even worse than their season average. And then they contested every shot at the rim using that length and size that they had. They held St. John's to 9% shooting from three, 9.1% shooting, and 28% from the field. Kadari Richmond could not play in this basketball game at all. He could not keep from fouling at all. Couldn't defend it. Could not defend without fouling. Just 5 fouls, -5 on the night, and 5 points and 4 rebounds. Like, and that's their one of their best players. R.J. Lewis not on his game at all for St. John's. And the matter of fact, Rick Pitino ended up putting him on the bench and didn't have him play toward the end of the game. He was so frustrated with it, even though he played 29 minutes in this game and was +5. He was 17% from the field, just could not get a shot. There's a lot of controversy around that. But you look at the Razorbacks, they didn't shoot just miles better, but they were efficient from the paint. In this one, went right at, and they got in the paint every drive they wanted to, played faster, played stronger, and had the front court do the damage that needed to get done. Jonas Adu had been, with all the foul trouble Jonas Adu had, and the fact he only played 20 minutes, this guy still had 7 points and 7 rebounds and was +11 in this game. And he was 66% from the paint. You also talk about, Trevin Brazil, who was 40% in this game. He was only 40% because he was shooting some threes along the way, too, and none of those were falling for him. He played 30 minutes in this game and goes 8 and 8, 8 points and 8 rebounds. And then DJ Wagner was sensational in this game. Nelly Davis, 13 points in this game. Billy Richmond, how about him? He was 1 rebound away from a double-double. Like, these guys came out and balled and had their athleticism and game plan put together. It was just a matter of being the more efficient team. And 42.9% shooting in this kind of basketball game, that is more than enough and what needs to get done when this is a defensive war against an opponent that similarly built the Texas Tech. This is the game, or not Texas Tech, Texas A&M. This is the game that Arkansas wanted to play against Texas A&M, and St. John's is a team that's built almost identically to Texas A&M.
Yeah, one of the things that I absolutely love, and I hope that we see them next year, but these freshmen went off.
Carter
I
Knox had a great game too. I didn't even mention him. You're right.
We always talk about, experience wins in March. Those guys stepped up, played like they've been here before, and they made contributions to this team that, without them, Arkansas would be in a completely different conversation right now. So, that's one other aspect to add to Coach Cal possibly being, the top tier coach in this situation, just because those freshmen played that way for him. And just had an excellent, excellent night.
It's been a really good coaching job by John Calipari. Not in the sense that he should be like national coach of the year or anything like that, but he turned this ship around in late January, early February, went on a serious run, started getting this team put back together, got them to win some big basketball games down the stretch, made sure they got to the NCAA tournament. And now it's let the cards fall where they may. We'll take on anybody right now because they're good enough to play with almost anybody right now. So they're good enough to play with anybody. They're also good enough to have a problem against somebody when they're having an off night. But this team has raised the ceiling consistently, and this has been an excellent coaching job by John Calipari this season. But Maddie, someone else who's doing an excellent coaching job, and we finally saw a big response out of this team. Maybe Auburn's just a second half team, but they ended up taking down Creighton 82-70. Maddie, did you have some thoughts on this matchup between Greg McDermott and Bruce Pearl?
Yeah, so we talked about excellent coaching. Bruce Pearl had to put his foot down at halftime and get this thing turned around, much like, we talked about Calipari turning the season around. They had to do this in this game if they wanted to keep the season alive. Um, just not what we expected from Auburn to start out the game. They looked slow on defense and couldn't get any shots to go down, at least the ones that they wanted. So it was a lot of just matching up better with Creighton. And I think, putting those X's and O's together in the locker room really helped them turn that game around.
Yeah, I will say the guard play here is what made the difference for Auburn. We knew they were going to have a little bit of a front court test with Ryan Kalkbrenner, and Janai Brim did not have his best game. He only goes 8 and 12 in this game. Really good game, rebounding the basketball, but kind of struggled from the field, only 30% from the field overall. But you had Tahad Pettiford, who's going for 23 points and was putting his floater shot on complete full display anytime that he got to the paint. You had 17 points from Chad Baker Mazar. You had 15 points from Denver Jones. Like the front court, the back court really stepped up here. And Tahad Pettiford had a really great basketball game and played well above his years. And they turned the tide there in the second half. At halftime, they're down 37-35. And it's looking like, okay, what's going to happen with Auburn here? Completely flips the switch, goes 47-33 in the second half of this one. And they were on cruise control for the later part of this one. Creighton was trying to make a push, but like once Auburn got their hooks sunk into this game, they took care of business and they got to the paint in a big way in this second half in this game. And they were finding it from there. And then they shot effectively from the field in this one, 36.8%. Auburn's looking the part. Auburn's looking the part of a number one seed right now. They've got a really tough matchup where this front court's going to get tested again. So you're going to expect that you're going to have to ask these guards to have a really good game in their next one because they're going to be the portion that's going to break the tie between you and the other team going forward in your matchup against Michigan. But in this game against Creighton, they showed us they can do that. And to me, that was a big positive sign for Bruce Pearl and his squad.
Yeah, I think overall, it pointed to why Auburn is where they're at today. If they didn't put out that second half performance, a lot of people would be questioning, especially those that picked them to win, why are they our pick? Why are they one of the biggest picks, outside of Duke for the championship? And it's because they can turn around a basketball game like they did.
Yep, they had it. They got this job done here, and it is Bruce Pearl's first return trip to the Sweet 16 since 2019. So yeah, Auburn gets this win here. It's a big one. It's significant. But another team that we've been keeping our eye on at the top of the charts here overall have been the Tennessee Volunteers, who get the win over UCLA 67-58. Maddie, I'm not going to lie, for the first few minutes, this looked like it was going to be entertaining. And then Tennessee and Chaz Lanier, and really it was Zakai Ziegler to me who stepped up, but Chaz Lanier had another huge game in this one. But once they flipped that switch, it was game over and it was boring. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think Mick Cronin said it best when he alluded to the fact that Tennessee is so experienced. They have such a great lineup. And then you add Chaz Lanier, who is just a phenomenal shooting guard to this, basically makes him unstoppable. So, I mean, it almost seems like he knew before he went in, like, we're gonna pray for a miracle and hope we get through this game. And that's kind of how it seemed, like you said, after the first few minutes.
I mean, Tennessee definitely used their offensive firepower because the guy Ziegler was finding dudes wide open. They went 50% from three in this one, 11 3-point field goals knocked down in this game. And then they also cleaned the glass at 36 rebounds compared to UCLA's 26. So really good numbers there for Tennessee and exactly what you wanted to see. But yeah, the backcourt for Tennessee just really delivered. Lanier, 20 points, 4 rebounds, 2 assists, goes +4. And Zakai Ziegler, who we're talking about, not the team leader in points, but this man was just finding dudes wide open, and he was playing a really great defensive game on top of that. 15 points, 3 rebounds, 6 assists, 3 steals, goes +12. Just got in there, got into the fight, and I mean, he would drive, kick, find someone in the paint, gonna find you, gonna find. He was finding dudes left and right, and he was carving UCLA's defense up considerably. He goes +12 in this game. Then Jordan Gainey was knocking down threes, 13 points in the game for him. He had 3 3-point field goals made in this game, and a lot of those set up by you know who. It was just one of those days, and like I said, I was just ready to by the end of this game, I was like, oh man, it's my bedtime. I'm gonna go to sleep because they made it boring in that second half and looked all the part that you need, what you need to see from a Sweet 16 team. And let me tell you, they're gonna need to keep playing like that because the last two times they faced the opponent they're about to face, they have not had games like that at all. A big win for Tennessee. They're back at the Sweet 16. Can Rick Barnes take them back to the Elite Eight? Well, they're going to have to go through a rather stubborn Kentucky team, which why don't we just go ahead and jump over to that one in the action from Sunday night because Kentucky, their national nightmare is over for Big Blue Nation. They are finally back in the Sweet 16 as they beat Illinois 84-75. Maddie, give me your thoughts on this one. I know there's a lot of things to talk about in this one, but of course, the biggest headline Kentucky's back in the Sweet 16 thanks to Mark Pope.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what I was expecting from Illinois, but it certainly wasn't the game that they gave Kentucky. It just seemed like Kentucky got every shot that they wanted. They were basically playing bully ball out there. Um, it's like when you have a high schooler go out and play with his middle school little brother and he's just dunking on his head. That's what this game felt like.
It certainly did. Look, I'm not gonna try to take anything away from Kentucky in this one, but Illinois' defense was terrible. And Illinois is a team that they can have nights where they look like national champions. Then they have nights where they just look like they have never played a game of basketball together. And this was somewhere in between that because this defense was so soft. Um, it was charm and soft. It was charm and soft. Like I mean, it was you could do anything you wanted. And when you play an offensive firepower team like Kentucky, they're going to beat you if you do not play some defense. And Illinois played like nothing good defense. There was one point I was texting you, it was like Brad Underwood is mad right now. And it's like that defense is just he's gonna call timeout because he is losing it right now with his defense. And that's exactly what killed them in this game, is that their defense was so pitiful that Kentucky got in there. At one point, I think they were shooting like 40% from three. They finished the game 38.1, knocked down 8 threes in this game. They were letting anybody and everyone get into the paint whenever they wanted to, because Kentucky, anytime off that zoom action, they were just like, here we go. I'm wide open in the paint. I'm about to deliver a floater. Kobe Bryant was running wild. Like Kobe Bryant was just loose like a menace. You can't leave a 48, 45% three-point shooter just running around the perimeter any way that you want him to run around. Like, that's just ridiculous. And what did Kobe Bryant's numbers end up being? 36 minutes, 23 points, and 6 rebounds +13 and goes 62% from the field. Like, you can't do that. Like, that's not how it works. Like, yeah, they were lost the entire time on this game. And like I said, I think Pope drew up a really good game plan. I also think Illinois played a really bad basketball game, but Kentucky really brought it to them and did not. They should have won this game by more. Like honestly, like that's what's crazy here is that Pope came up with a good game plan. Illinois played bad defense, and it was just over before it even got started. And then this to me was honestly one of the best defensive performances I've seen out of Kentucky this year. One of their best defensive performances overall. Like, not only they held Illinois to under 30% from behind the arc, caused them to panic, caused a significant amount of turnovers, 14 turnovers compared to Kentucky's 5 in this game. Lamont Butler was out there picking pockets anytime a guard was picking the ball down, bringing the ball down the court. And then Jaconis he had 13 points in this game, but the dude had had a couple of turnovers. He had 6 turnovers on his own. They were picking on freshmen out there. Like they were doing exactly what they needed to do to win this game. And like I said, Kentucky's defense, it's not the world's best, but this was if they play defense like that, they have a higher ceiling. Like, because that was really good defense. And like I said, Andrew Carr, his stats are not going to pop up all over this sheet, but he had a really good defensive performance as well with his rim protection and altering shots throughout this game. So I mean, if they play defense like that, they can go further than this, like, where they are right now. Like that's always been the limiting factor, and this is some of the best defense I've seen from them this year.
Yeah, a great defensive effort. Like you said, I think it definitely helps, obviously, that Lamont Butler's back. We've talked about a lot that he's kind of the defensive power on this team. So I think just having him on the floor helps elevate that as well. Um, and he caused a lot of problems in that guard play. So I'm interested to see how, round three Kentucky Tennessee goes.
I am too. But Maddie, there's another note in this whole thing. Is that like you just everybody needs to take a collective breath because everyone's happy. John Calipari and Arkansas are in the Sweet 16. Mark Pope and Kentucky are in the Sweet 16. Kevin Young and BYU are in the Sweet 16, and Eric Musselman is in Los Angeles. And so, like, yeah, everyone's happy right now. Everybody got what they wanted in the end of this story this year.
Well, except Dan Hurley.
Dan Hurley did not get what he wanted. He did not get what he wanted. And yeah, you're right. Let's go ahead and talk about the dominant performance from Florida. Well, it really wasn't that dominant at the end of the day, but because there was a while there that it just looked like it was going to get scary. Who knew what was going to happen? UConn came out and played like the champs. Walter
Yeah.
Clayton delivered a huge shot late in this game, and I was surprised Bill Rafferty didn't yell onions like he normally does. But Florida beats UConn 77-75. Dan Hurley's first loss in the NCAA tournament in over 2 years. Maddie, your thoughts on this game?
Yeah, I think I texted you at some point in this game and was like, if Florida doesn't figure something out, this is not going to end very well. Um, and we saw Todd Golden sit there and figure it out because he was finally able to, make some moves in the paint, get some guys open around the 3-point line, which UConn was holding them to a pretty rough standard at the beginning of this basketball game. So, props to Todd Golden for going up against the two-time champ and taking him down because I did not think it was going to happen there for about 75% of that basketball game.
Well, for a few minutes in the second half, yeah, it looked a little nerve wracking. And you were texting me, it's like Florida's got to clean up some little things here and there. And they really did. They had to stop turning over the basketball. They had to, stop turning down wide open shots and opt for a better one. Like they were -6 in the turnover department in this game. Like they were having issues. And then they were missing free throws
Those
as well. They went less than 65% from the free throw line and managed to win this basketball game. And it's because they cleaned up a lot of things as they went on and then played like they needed to play down the stretch of this one because UConn was close. UConn was close to upsetting Florida on Sunday morning whenever this game got started. It started morning our time, Central Time Zone. But yeah, um, there were some really good performances in this one. Florida needed to come through. They came up with just a couple enough loose balls, and then they had a really great performance from Will Richard on the defensive end. Really, he made some key defensive plays down the stretch. And then Walter Clayton, of course, goes 23 points, 3 rebounds, 1 assist, 42% from the floor, and hits 5 threes. And that big one I'm talking about as well. It's also, one of the things to talk about is that in the NCAA tournament, Walter Clayton was sitting on the bench at Iona. And now he transfers to Florida here down the road. And he's the one sending UConn home after UConn had sent his Iona team home a few years ago. So a big moment for him in this one as well. But like I said, Maddie, in our conversation, UConn played like the champs, and they were playing a coach who got his first NCAA tournament win on Friday. Todd Golden figured it out as they went, got the team settled down. The team got the job done at the end of the day. They played some really good defense. And the one thing that I've been saying that Florida needs to pick up and get better at is shooting the three if they want to be national champions. They ended up shooting over 45% from three in this game. Their Kim Palm number, look, checked it out after the game. They're just a few decimal points away now from that magical 36%. So they are close to checking all the boxes now. Let's see if they can keep shooting like that and just tilt that 3-point percentage just a little higher. If they shoot like that and they play defense like that, Florida might be your national champions this year. Very strange to think when you think about a coach who's so young, has so little experience. But I guess in order to be the man, you got to beat the man. So, give me two claps and a Ric Flair. Let's move on to our next one, Maddie, because Alabama had a game against a team that was the complete opposite of them, a complete opposite opponent, and they faced St. Mary's, but they got the win 80-66. Maddie, what were your thoughts for the Tide in their game against St. Mary's?
For the first few minutes, I was a little concerned. I thought this game was going to be a lot closer than a lot of people anticipated. And then Alabama started to settle in and figure out their game plan. And that's pretty much the story of this game. Um, it was kind of in Alabama's favor the entire time. They ran a little faster than I expected them to. Figured they'd, slow down the pace, but no, even when they were what was it, like a 16-point lead, or was it bigger than that at halftime? Um, they just kept running with the ball.
Yeah.
So great game for Alabama. One of those that it shows why they are where they're at. And you know, good job, St. Mary's, for making it this far in the tournament.
Yeah. St. Mary's definitely is a team that's been trying to get into the Sweet 16, trying to replace UConn or trying to replace Gonzaga there in the WCC when Mark Few finally retires out there. But they've been a consistent basketball team. Like I said, you just don't want to fall in and play their style of basketball. And there were times where Alabama was getting caught in that trap, that it really felt like a tug of war between whose style was actually going to get out there and whose style was actually going to prevail and how it was going to play out. And finally, Alabama's did. And one of the reasons they did is because of the rebounding. They finally started winning the glass. And that's when Alabama took over this game and really got it under control. But yeah, that to me, this was a total game performance from Alabama. One you really like to see. They shot 41% from the field. Cliff Amore had a double-double, 10 points, 11 rebounds. Mark Sears, who goes 12 points in this game. Aiden Holloway also grabs 12 points, and Chris Youngblood with 13. Grant Nelson, 12 points, 8 rebounds, plus 11 for the night for him. Yeah, there was some really, really good moments for the Tide. Total control from this game. Once they grabbed control, there was no more problems to be had. Maddie, there was one more winner we need to talk about. I didn't think we were going to talk about this many winners, even as good as I knew this conference was, but we got 7 out of 8 teams into the from the round of 32 to the Sweet 16. How about the shocker? Like it was a good win for Arkansas, but one I don't think anybody had in their bracket was really Ole Miss taking down Iowa State in the fashion in which Ole Miss took down Iowa State 91-78. I mean, you want to talk about a boring basketball game? It was over in the first half until like a couple of minutes would have got more entertaining. But Ole Miss led by as much as 26 points in this game, and they were doing whatever they wanted to poor little old Iowa State.
Yeah, it definitely felt kind of like that Kentucky game, but it was one that I didn't get to watch, but I was checking updates and I thought there was a glitch in the system. I was like, are they just not updating the Iowa State score? Because this can't be right.
Like the
No.
Wisconsin score when they were up like 200 points to BYU.
Right. Something's got to be wrong. Nope, it was just Ole Miss having a day. I mean, like you said, Sean Padula, Jermaine Brakefield, absolutely going off. Jermaine Brakefield's one of those guys that I feel like if he is having a day, Ole Miss is going to win whatever basketball game they want to, because he is kind of that guy that if he's on, and there's nobody that's going to turn it off. And I think Ole Miss needed somebody other than Sean Padula and other than Matthew Morrell to kind of go in there and take control. And once it's a little bit more balanced, Ole Miss is a tough team to beat, and
Yeah, they
know that.
played a completely solid basketball game, and like, yeah, there was contributor after contributor. But my takeaway on this is that, like, other than what I'm going to talk about here just for a second, like, do you know there's occasions in basketball and other sports where you just play beyond your own talent level and beyond your own ability. And I felt like Ole Miss did that for about 3 quarters of this game. Like, I was like, I watched Ole Miss a lot this season. I've watched them plenty. I know they're a good basketball team. I also know Iowa State's defense is a lot better than that. But my goodness, they look like, the Knicks out there playing Iowa State. They just took it to a level that I did not know existed for them, and they can play completely out of their minds. There was one point where I just sent you a text of the stat sheet, and I was like, they're doing this to one of the best defenses in the country. They were shooting over 60% from three. Over 60%. They were just knocking everything down. Like well over 50% from the floor. They finished this game 58.2% and 57.9%. And then they were converting anything that they when they got to the free throw line. Exceptional performance from Ole Miss. And Maddie, it's school history. This is only the second time in school history that Ole Miss has made the Sweet 16. They are darn close now. They can go for an all new, a brand new all-time best in the NCAA tournament with the win against Michigan State. I think that's just insane. Your final thoughts, and then we'll talk about the last one.
Yeah, I mean, just a crazy place to be in for Chris Beard. Going from last year to having a kind of rocky year throughout, and then this year to having a good year in the SEC, and then continuing to take down teams that they aren't supposed to in the tournament.
Yeah, party like it's 2001 for Ole Miss. That's the story here. Chris Beard in year two just does excellent work. It was a big one. Like I said, the only reason this score was this close is because Ole Miss pushed it or Iowa State pushed it there just a little bit at the end, and it just took some Chris Beard yelling to get Ole Miss back on track. All right, Maddie, we have one loser of this whole thing, and I think it's important now. I take it a little bit different angle. There's no need to really just dive in and rip apart X's and O's because the team's going to be different next year and everything else. But Michigan takes down Texas A&M 91-79. Maddie, you really liked Texas A&M's performance, but they fell apart late in this game.
Yeah, first half absolutely phenomenal, and then second half, um, gotta hand it to Dusty May in Michigan. He figured out how to use his big guys. He figured out how to, be able to stop A&M's rebound by committee situation that they always have going on, and
It helps when
it
you have two
just
7-footers. I'm just saying.
yeah, absolutely shut the Aggies down. Um, like you said, not much analysis there. Michigan was just the much better team in this game.
And just at the end, Texas A&M did not have enough to finish. They led throughout this game until the very end, and Michigan pulls away. Maddie, this is what I want to talk about though: is like, what does this loss mean for Texas A&M? They made it to the round of 32. This team has not been back to the Sweet 16 in years. We're transfer portal opens on Monday. We're going to talk about that later in the show, but to you, I know what it means to me, but with Texas A&M, they're going to lose a lot of this roster in key pieces, and they're not going to return very many minutes when it comes to the portal this season. What are your thoughts about the fact that Texas A&M was unable to get to the Sweet 16 this season under Buzz?
I think the game plan just didn't play out the way that they wanted to. I think Buzz thought, they had those shooters to kind of balance out from last season, had those pieces to kind of replicate what Boots Radford kind of gave them in the previous year. And then it just didn't work out that way. You know, they were able to keep the kind of defensive power that they held the year before, but the fixes they thought they had on offense just weren't fully there. And I think that's something they're going to continue to look for next year and try and find those big replacement pieces.
Well, it's going to be a while. I mean, it's going to take a minute probably for this team unless Buzz does exceptionally well in the portal. This was supposed to be their year. Like, this was supposed to be their year to break through to the Sweet 16. This was supposed to be the moment. And here you are, round of 32, going home. after you fall to Michigan. Like this team was loaded with seniors and guys who've been there before and dropped that game to Houston this time a year ago. And now you got this game against Michigan. You overperformed what a lot of people thought you were going to do in the SEC this season, and you're still coming up short this year and trying to get back to the Sweet 16. Look, Texas A&M is not the proud. They're a proud program. Don't get me wrong, but it's not the most tenured and awesome resume all time in the NCAA tournament. But it really felt like they had the pieces to possibly get there and get through to the Sweet 16. It's not a shocker because this team can't shoot. We've said it a lot this year, but like overall, at the end of the day, like this was supposed to be the team, and I think it just bothers me that they can't get through, that they just can't push to that next level. And it's going to probably be a minute before they get another opportunity like this, based on at least a year, you would think, because like with the transfer portal, a lot of teams, when you have to build out of the portal, unless your name is Eric Musselman, a lot of those teams stub their toes. Or apparently Mark Pope too. Like he seems to be an exception to the rule as well. But a lot of those teams don't make the NCAA tournament the next year. I expect A&M to take a step back next season, depending on what happens in the portal this year, because of what their retention looks like right now. Texas A&M, like I don't want to sell anything short, but what you do in the tournament matters. And they fell short, and it almost feels like nothing else matters to this point in the season. I'm not an A&M fan, but that's how I would take it if I was a fan down there in College Station.
Yeah, definitely a disappointment, I think, for the fans this season, something they were looking forward to. But as the year went on, it was almost like it told to tell itself, that they were kind of that mid tier. Everybody else was just a little bit better than them. And if they had that shooting, maybe we would have seen them go to the Sweet 16. Maybe we would have seen them go to the Elite Eight, but they just weren't the complete basketball team they needed to be to continue that push through March.
Let's talk about the Sweet 16. Moving on here, changing the topic to the teams that got the job done. And Maddie, also, I wouldn't necessarily call Texas A&M mid-tier. They did finish fifth in the SEC. I wouldn't call that exactly mid-tier in this conference, but let's talk about the Sweet 16.
The top of the middle. I feel like we always considered like the first four like top tier, and then you had like a large chunk of middle.
I'm going to
And
hold you to that when Arkansas finishes fifth at some point. So,
you say that they are the top of the losers.
they finished ninth. Never. We're no. I don't like your chart. I don't like your system here. They're in the Sweet 16, so you can just go away with that one right now. And they finished ninth in the conference. You know, when we said their floor was 10th, they performed better than the floor. So let's talk about the Sweet 16 because we had a lot of games to talk about overall. Let's start out in the South region here on the South region. I don't know the order yet, actually, the games. I know we did in the round of 32, the order games. We're just going to go region by region like we did with the bracket one in the same order. So let's start with Auburn here as they take on Michigan. Maddie, we've seen this Michigan team. It runs through their front court, and Auburn's also a team that has an elite front court. This is an elite front court collision. Kind of your thoughts between these two. You've seen both of them play a couple of times this season. Auburn definitely more so, but your thoughts as Michigan and Auburn face off.
Yeah, Janai Broom is going to have a much better game than he had in this game against Creighton because he, like you said, is going up against two 7-footers.
14 feet of length.
We've talked about Michigan several times up to this point, and the key to winning this basketball game is to taking them out of it. And the man that's going to be able to do that is Janai Broom. So he's going to have a step up game here. And, I think with the game that the backcourt had, it shouldn't be a problem getting points on the board. It is keeping Michigan from scoring with their 14 feet of center/forwards.
Yeah, and those guys don't mind running the pick and roll together either. So it's going to be a defensive task for Dylan Cardwell and Janai Broom guarding those guys too, because Danny Wolf is not your normal 7-footer. The dude he's a baller. He's not just big. Like he plays in a way that is hard to deal with. And both these guys can shoot from three. So it's a crazy combination of 7-footers that you got out here on this Michigan team. You're right. Where I think that Auburn can get the job done. And I think what will make, Auburn, give Auburn an advantage is that Michigan's got Roddy Gale. Auburn fans know who Trey Donaldson is. There's plenty of good guards on this Michigan team, but I really do feel like Auburn's got the more experienced guards and has the deeper rotation of guards to make an impact in this game. When you talk about Tahad Pettiford, who's out here playing like an NBA draft pick, well above his years, and he can ball out of his mind when he wants to. Jimber Jones can play at both the one and the two, knockdown shooter as well. He's 48% for the season. Same with Miles Kelly, who's a great shooter on this team. I think the guards are really what's going to set Auburn apart in this basketball game and give them the opportunity to win this one and advance. It should, cards play in that way. I think that's, so you're asking for your backcourt to step up and be the leaders of this team. I really do think that that's what's going to lead to success for this Auburn team, is having good games from those guys, and that'll make the key difference. That's to me, that's the difference, especially when you have two elite backcourts. Where are you better than the other team at? I think the guard play is where Auburn's going to have their advantage. Kim Palm's got an 80 to 72 at 77%, going to Auburn to make the Elite Eight. Maddie, you like those odds?
I do. I'm going to go with Auburn on that one as well.
I, I, I'm thinking that that's probably the way it is going to fall. All right, history beckons for the Ole Miss Rebels as they have made it to the Sweet 16 and now have to face the Michigan State Spartans. Maddie, Tom Izzo's not a guy that you necessarily want to face when it comes to March. What's kind of your thoughts on this game?
I am excited about this backcourt matchup. I think we have a lot of star power, a lot of firepower on both sides of the court here. Anybody who's been watching has heard the Jace Richardson / Jason Richardson story because it's aired like 5 times just today.
Yeah.
But you got to give him props. This kid is good. I mean, he came out, didn't start on the year, injury happened. He came in, has been playing phenomenal ever since then. So, Jace Richardson, definitely somebody to watch out for. And then Jay Nakins, um, another dominant force on that backcourt. So, there's a lot that Ole Miss is going to have to play up against, especially when it comes to the defensive effort in these guys. So, if they can have another game like they had today,
Well, they
setting
look like they did
the
today against Iowa State. I wouldn't take anybody. Like I would be calling Ole Miss my national champions if they played like that today. Like every day. But overall, though, you had like I said, they have a really good backcourt at Michigan State, but the one area they don't excel at is shooting the three ball. This is a team that does it in every way but the three. They're good from inside. They shoot well at the free throw line. They're a top 25 offense, and the front court does an exceptional job with the rebounding. They're top 20 in offensive rebounds, and they don't let the other team get many offensive rebounds. So to me, in this game, and not to mention also they're the number one 3-point defense in the country, and that leads me right to my point is that I think Ole Miss, you got to be looking at Sean Padula and you got to be looking at the rest of this backcourt to knock down their threes in this game. Ole Miss is decent from three. They're almost at 35% on the year. They shoot above the national average, a decent 3-point shooting team. So they need to convert those shots. And like I said, Sean Padula, Dre Davis, those guys need to get in there, hit those threes the best they can. Well, not really Dre Davis, I guess. Well, yeah, no, Dre Davis. I'm mistaken. My brain just had a moment there. But like the guys that you're normally shooting, Jalen Murray, Matthew Morrell, those guys in combination, they need to be able to shoot for this Ole Miss team to find success, and then they've got to figure out ways to clean up the glass. This is a poor Ole Miss offensive rebounding team. They need to find a chance to extend some possessions to take away those opportunities for Michigan State because Michigan State's going to push the tempo a little bit more, little bit. They're going to get out there and they're going to try to get to the hole. So you've got to make sure that you're converting. And then, like I said, with Michigan State trying to get to the hole, you got to stop the ball on defense. So that's going to be a big part of it as well. So can't let the defense overwhelm you, and you can't just let too many opportunities go by to Michigan State. That's how they're going to beat you. That's how they're going to beat you without shooting a bunch of threes, is extending and creating more opportunities and possessions overall. That to me, that's the recipe right there. Any other thoughts, Maddie, before we move on? And by the way, folks, if you're curious why we're going fast, it's because I'm doing my breakdowns throughout the week. And because there's only four regions, I think we're going to touch on as many areas as we can. I might do four videos. We'll see how it works out. But yeah, that's why we're doing it just really fast, shocking to this one. But any other thoughts before I do the Ken Palm score?
Nope. I think you covered it all.
All right. All right. Well, it's got the Kim Bombs right now got Michigan State winning this one 73-70 at 62%. A little bit tighter than you might expect, but hey, Ole Miss just had a heck of a basketball game. And you know what they say, history's not going to come easy if Ole Miss is going to make their first ever Elite Eight run. Let's go to the next one, Maddie, and let's jump to the West region where the Florida Gators are going to be facing a very elite defense and a team that got one of the few buzzer beaters in this opening weekend of the NCAA tournament as they face the Maryland Terrapins and Kevin Willard. Maddie, your kind of thoughts on Maryland?
This is going to be an interesting matchup for Florida just because they are a very front court heavy team. Florida's very they have a great front court, but in a very different way. Maryland's got that big body, scored points, much like I feel like if you put Janai Broom on the Arkansas Slim Chickens meal plan situation and Derek Queen. So I think Florida's got to beef up that front court. They've got to be aggressive. They've got to play strong because we didn't see much of that today against UConn. So I think that is kind of the secret sauce here. If Maryland wins it, it's going to be in that front court.
Yeah, but this is a top 10 defense. And this Maryland team, they're a top 15 3-point shooting defense, which has been the area that Florida is needed to shoot a little bit better. And the Maryland will knock down their shots, 37.5% on the season from three, over 50% converting from their twos, tons of rim protection as well, 6.7 blocks per game, and they steal the basketball, the number three team stealing the basketball in the country. Florida's been just a hair better than them here and there. So Florida's got to bring their A game in this game and bring the best version of themselves out there because they're going to get a challenge. They are the better team, but they are going to get a challenge from this Maryland team on in the Sweet 16. So yeah, names you need to be looking out for: Jacoby Gillespie, Rodney Rice, Selton Miguel, Julian Reese, and Derek Queen. Really key pieces for this Maryland team. That's going to be the rotation, the primary rotation that's going to be out there for the Terrapins. Maddie Kimpom's got this game going 81-75 at 71%. Going to the Gators. That's a large margin before a top 10 Kimpom game. Do you like it, or do you think it's going to be closer? The chances of Maryland winning are going to be closer than 71%.
I feel like it's going to be a little bit closer. I still think Florida has the edge here. Um, but with that elite defense, I think they're going to get more stops than what Kim Palm's accounting for.
I will say there have been several games this season, as good as Maryland is, they have delivered some head scratchers at times throughout the year. So just keep your eyes out for that. So they've delivered some duds to some bad teams. Maryland overall team that needs to raise their own profile just a little bit, and those kind of avoid their worst case scenario game overall. But yeah, I like Florida's chances of advancing to the Elite Eight. Let's talk about the next one, Maddie, where the Razorbacks will be facing Texas Tech. Maddie, your kind of thoughts on this matchup between these two former Southwest Conference opponents?
Yeah, I think this is going to be a great game. I feel like it's a very good matchup for the Hogs, especially when you look at their leading scorer, JT Toppin. We've talked about him a few times on this podcast, and he's been talked about quite a bit in the broadcast if you've been watching March Madness. But this is going to have to be a game where we get guys like Trevor Brazil, Jonas Adu come out, and they have great guard play because as long as you shut down JT Toppin,
Did you just call Jonas Adu and Trevor Brazil guards? I'm gonna let it go because it's 11 o'clock
no,
at night.
no, they're going to have to guard JT
Oh,
Toppin.
guard well. Okay, gotcha. I was like,
Yeah.
good guard
No,
play.
no,
I
no,
was
no,
like,
no. No, they're gonna have to guard JT Toppin well because as long as you shut him down, Arkansas has a pretty decent chance of winning this basketball game.
here's one thing that I think Razorback fans may not realize. Coming into this game, yeah, the computer numbers are great for Texas Tech and they look really awesome. But like when you get on the floor for this one thing Razorback fans are going to notice really quickly, Arkansas is a lot bigger than them. Like JT Toppin's only 6'9". When you talk about comparing that up to the couple of different guys who are 6'11", 6'10", over 7 feet, like JT Toppin's going to have to go through trees in this game. That's going to be part of it. Their point guard's 5'11". Elijah Hawkins only 5'11". So if you can make this a game about your athleticism and lock down on defense, it really will change the tide in this game because Texas Tech, for a top, offense in the country, they're top five, and they shoot the ball well, and they opt for a lot of 3-pointers in their points distribution, well above the national average. But here's the thing: they're slow. They do not play at the pace that Arkansas and other teams play. They play at a much slower tempo overall in their game plan. So if you can speed this game up and make it about athleticism and get to the rim, and you have a really dominant performance from your number five and number four guys on the offensive end, that's how Arkansas gets past Texas Tech. They're gonna have to hit threes. Like they're gonna have to hit some threes. Like that's good. You can't make just two, like you did against St. John's. But that's well below Arkansas season average in 3-point field goals made for the year. That's even worse for Arkansas. Like they had their upset of St. John's is one of their worst shooting performances of the year overall. Like so they've been overdue in these first two games. They've been shooting below their average, so maybe they can hit a couple of threes. Cal was talking about it too after the game. You got to hit some threes if you're going to win. So to me, you knock down a couple of threes, at least get to your season average. You're good defensively, and you speed this game up. Let the cards fly. Like to me, like that'll change this game dramatically. Because like I said, McCaslin's plan is pretty much we're going to be the more efficient offense. And we're going to see slower. We're going to slow this game down because we think possession to possession, we could just be better than you. But like I said, Arkansas's got the size, the athleticism, and the speed to really mess that game plan up. And that's going to be what's really wild. They just have to be efficient offensively. And that's going to, I say just, they really haven't done that all year, but that's how they find success overall, is that they are going to have to find ways to be offensively efficient in this game. The computer's got this one, Maddie, 77, 71, 71% going to Texas Tech on KenPom. Your thoughts on that?
I feel like that percentage is just a little bit lower, considering the rough patch that Arkansas went through at the
It's
beginning.
very dramatic. It's
I
very
feel like
dramatic.
if you cut off like the first 7, 8 games of
If you
SEC
just
play,
take out the month of January,
right? It would be completely different, which if you take out the month of January, a lot of things would be completely different for the Razorbacks. So I think it's going to be a little bit closer than that. We might finally have that fun buzzer beater ending that everybody's looking for.
it could be. It could be. This could be one of the best games of the tournament so far. I'm kind of feeling that vibe. Like I said, it's going to require Arkansas to hit some shots, and they've got to hit some shots, and they've got to play some really good defense. But they're capable of playing defense. We know how good the defense is. It's top 20. They got to hit. They got to hit some shots along the way if they're going to upset Texas Tech and find themselves in an even better spot than what they are right now. So we'll just see how far Arkansas can go. Let's jump to the East region here real fast, where Alabama is finding themselves in what's going to be the scoring fest of the NCAA tournament as they take on BYU and Kevin Young. Maddie, your thoughts on this game, because BYU in Wisconsin was probably the best game in the tournament thus far.
I don't know.
Colorado State and Maryland was pretty good too, but it's up there.
I don't know what the over is in this game, but take it. Take it all day long because this game is going to be rampant with a lot of 3-point shots, a lot of scoring, a lot of offense is basically what this game is going to be like. I feel like it's going to look like one of those all-star games in the NBA because they don't want their players to get hurt where everyone's just shooting the basketball.
Well, speaking of NBA, I mean that's exactly where BYU gets it from. They got a they're going to play an NBA style basketball game because they have an former NBA assistant coach for their head coach. They got some guys who can play on this team and they can knock down shots. Dalen Hall, Igor Denham, Trevin Neal, Trey Stewart. They got a good deep backcourt here on BYU and plenty of guys. Richie Saunders is going to be somebody you need to keep an eye on. Dawson Baker, Mag's another player in the front court, who's going to be out there making an impact. They've got tons of guys who can shoot 30% or 33% or better from deep. This team's 3-point shooting is 37.3. The area that Alabama can exploit is that they're just not defensively great. But they've got to limit the effective field goals that BYU takes because they're shooting the fifth best effective field goal percentage in the country, 57.2%. So you know what Nate Oates wants. Drop coverage, drop them back, and force them into mid-range shots and less efficient field goals. You got to make them go to their third option as their second option, really, and create a lot of pressure. Speed this game up, make it the way you want it to go. And then the other side of that is that BYU is a team that doesn't get to the free throw line a lot. So don't foul. You can play defense without fouling. You're a good enough defensive team to do that in this game. So lock down around the perimeter, really ice things over. Have some good leadership out there from a few of your guys, and you can really take over this basketball game. Ken Palm's got it going 89-84 at 68%. Go higher than that. Put it in the 90s, folks. This thing's going to the 90s or higher. Like, this is going to be an insane NCAA tournament game for a Sweet 16. One that everyone's going to be calling one of the best games they ever watched in their lives because there's going to be so much scoring. So much scoring. Like, look for a 200 over, man. Like, that's what I'm talking about in this one. Maddie, what do you think? Alabama going to pull this one out?
Man, I think they definitely have the ability to. Like I said, it's just whose shot's going down.
Yeah.
That's the end all be all to this game. And I think Alabama, based off of the defense that they've played, I think they definitely have a good opportunity to do it here.
Certainly so. All right. So the last one is SEC on SEC crime in the NCAA tournament between two teams who don't like each other very much. Kentucky and Tennessee facing off in this one. Look, we know the story at this point. We talked about this game twice this season. And really the whole thing is that Tennessee has a great defense and an offense that can be awesome one night and just who knows the next night. But overall, a good offensive team. Kentucky, a very, very good offensive team with a defense that has been steadily improving throughout the season, to where it was like not good to, okay, it's serviceable to they just came off probably their best defensive performance of the season in their last game. So here we are. Here we are in this one. We know the cast of characters, Zakai Ziegler, Lamont Butler. We know Amari Williams is going to be down low against Felix Akpara, and Igor Milicic is going to be a step out three guy, just like Andrew Carr is going to be a step out three guy. Maddie, it's hard for a team to beat somebody three times in a row, and Kim Pom has picked Tennessee to beat Kentucky three times in a row now. Do, does Tennessee finally beat Kentucky? Because, like we've talked about it, Mark Pope has cut that paint off multiple times on the defensive end and soft coverage off in the paint because Tennessee can't hit from three. Are they finally going to hit some threes against Kentucky?
I mean, surely to God, Tennessee can figure this basketball game out by now.
You would think.
You would think. You would think. But they have had a much better, much more proficient offensive game plan throughout the tournament. So, maybe Rick Barnes is just saving it and he's using it all now. I don't know, but I hope that's the case for
regular
Rick
season.
Barnes.
Rick is saving it for the NCAA tournament. Is that what you're telling me, Penny?
Maybe he's trying to switch up the game plan. I don't know, David. But if Kentucky beats them three times in 1 year, nobody ever hear the end of it.
No, Kentucky fans will never let Tennessee hear the end of this, especially because, like, for 2 years in a row, Tennessee's probably had the best two teams Tennessee's ever had playing basketball. Just think about that. Like, it's insane. But yeah, like, Ken Palm's picked him three times in a row. Let's see what happens between these two. This is going to be an awesome basketball game, you would think. If Kentucky can knock down or Tennessee can knock down some shots, they're gonna have Chaz Lanier shoot well. They're gonna have Jordan Gainey shoot well. They're gonna have Zakai Ziegler shoot well, and they've got to beat. They gotta hedge the screens on that zoom action that Mark Pope's gonna run on Kentucky's end of the court. It's just got to be done. For Kentucky, they got to play some good defense. Which they've done the last two times they faced Tennessee, and they've managed to work their game plan out to a T. So Let's see if Mark Pope can do it for the third time in a row on with a trip to the Elite Eight on the line. Um, like I said, Ken Palm's got this game 76-71, going to Tennessee for the third time in a row. The computer picks Tennessee at 65%. I'm not picking. I'm not picking this because
I do feel like if Tennessee comes out the victor, that number is going to be lower. I think it is going to be a defensive rock fight if Tennessee is to win this game.
they're going to have to impact Kentucky shooting. That's going to be the biggest thing. They have
Mhm.
to do that, and they have to shoot well well themselves. So it's a lot of guys to cover. They're capable of doing it. Will they do it? And then they got to knock down shots of their own. So just is what it is. Is what it is. And you just know that there's a couple of seniors on that Tennessee team that are going, we are not losing to Kentucky again this year. Someone's got that message. But Maddie, with that all being said, this guarantees that one SEC team at least will be in the Elite Eight. We had a record now set for the Sweet 16 that we mentioned at the top of the show. The record for the Elite Eight from a single conference, most teams, was four by the Big East in 2009. One's in. Who else joins in the Elite Eight? That's the question. We'll find that out this week if the SEC can break another record for the NCAA tournament this season. Maddie, let's get to some of the other storylines that are going on that we need to touch on because as we release this podcast, which is probably going to be on Monday morning, the big thing is going to be the transfer portal is officially open on Monday. Um, Share your thoughts, Maddie. I'm taking a look at it now. I put the top 10 list here. There's a lot of teams that are going to get a lot of work done in the portal this offseason, but a lot of them are still playing basketball too because of where we are right now. But a lot of teams that are going to replace seniors they're going to lose and guys who are going to the NBA draft.
Yeah, I think we're going to see a lot more transpire probably over the next week or so as teams, lose out of the tournament as they get home, kind of make some decisions. And then I think we're going to have a lot very similar to last year who decided to try and test the NBA waters and figure out if they're coming back or not. And I think that's going to affect the transfer portal quite a bit this season as we get closer to it. But so far, nothing too impressive. From what I've seen, I know the transfer portal is going to be a huge deal, especially to some of these bigger teams like Auburn, like Texas A&M,
That
that
are
are
having huge roster rotation. Yeah.
that are losing a ton. So it's definitely something that we're going to have to keep our eye on. But as of right now, still in the beginning stages, that'll ramp up a lot more after March is over with.
Yeah, absolutely. And just we've got the top 10 list here on the screen. I'm just going to tell you now that number four player Tucker DeVries, don't expect him to stay very long in the transfer portal. I got a feeling he's going to follow dad to his new school. All right, let's go ahead. And there was a significant headline that came out in the while the tournament was going on, and really this all transpired in one day. The Texas Longhorns reportedly have let go of Rodney Terry as the head coach of the Texas Longhorns. Rodney Terry has taken Texas in his 3 years as head coach of the NCAA tournament. Each year, he's had a record of 62-37, 27-27 in conference play across both the SEC and the Big 12, and 4-3 in the NCAA tournament. Maddie, for a lot of schools, that would be considered good. But for one of the things that we were talking about, when you got a program that's spending almost $500 million on their basketball facilities and their department and their basketball team as a whole, they're invested in basketball. And reports have it that the Texas Longhorns already have the guy for their next coach. Maddie, it sounds like it's Miller time in Austin as Sean Miller sounds like he's going to be the next head coach of the Texas Longhorns. And this is an absolutely awesome hire if all things sources are correct. You're talking about a coach with a 487 and 196 record. And yes, there's an asterisk on that. Sean Miller would still be the coach at Arizona if it was not for the Adidas scandal that took place in college basketball. He would still be the head coach of the Arizona Wildcats more than likely today. The man has been to four Elite Eights. He has an NCAA tournament record of 22-13. 8 conference titles and 4 conference tournament titles. Maddie, what do you think about Sean Miller heading from Xavier to Texas as this new head coaching hire because wow, this would be a big one and a big grab from one of the best coaches out there to get.
Yeah, we talked about it all season, kind of alluding to the fact that Terry was on the hot seat. Didn't make it far in the tournament as they would like. So it makes sense that they would have somebody in mind that they were ready to nab. So like I said, I think Sean Miller's a great grab. I think it's going to be a huge difference for Texas and their style of play, and I think it's probably something that aligns more with what Texas was looking for in a head coach to begin with.
This is big. We've already seen just the incredible talent that's out there. If this is true, and we'll get confirmation of it very shortly. You know, more and more people. Matt Norlander was already saying it though, and there were several others. We're just waiting for Texas to say it now. At this point, it's like we were with Calipari when Arkansas hired Calipari. That's where we're at right now with it. And our information here at 11:30 at night on Sunday evening is that we're just waiting for absolute confirmation from the university. But Sean Miller adds what is a continuously growing talent pool of coaches here in this conference with Nate Oates, John Calipari. You also talk about Chris Beard, who's been to a Final Four. Todd Golden looks like he's headed that way. Bruce Pearl's been to a Final Four. The coaching is outstanding in this conference. Rick Barnes, who's been to a Final Four. We can just keep going down the list on what these coaches have accomplished. The coaching has never been better in the SEC, and Sean Miller joining the fraternity, I mean, is just another staple of what has been is a absolutely amazing collective of talent in this conference. And it's going to make for some awesome Arkansas Texas basketball games if this is the case, because Sean Miller is going to bring in some talent to this Longhorns team.
Yeah, I think if this is what is to be, it's going to be another amazing step up. We added two great programs. You're adding another great coach to one of those great programs just to further the level of competition that there is in the SEC.
Yep. And like I said, Sean Miller, I guess he would still be the head coach at Arizona if it wasn't for all the stuff that went down in 2017. But that is the end of our show tonight. Hope you guys enjoyed it. It's probably Monday morning when you're watching this. Yeah, we appreciate you guys being here this week. We're going to be back. Me and Maddie, hopefully, are going to be back at the end of the Sweet 16, and then we'll also catch up with you again at the end of the Elite Eight as we go round by round of the NCAA tournament. And then I will be back sometime this week breaking down X's and O's, game plans, and all that stuff again in some videos throughout the week. But until next time, we will catch you guys soon. See you in the next
Thanks,
one.
guys. Have a good one.